I guess to the surprise of no one, Michael Vick was named the starter earlier this week. Your thoughts on his performance in the first 2 games and the limited amount of practice times the writers get to see the Eagles at the Nova Complex?
We got to see the first, from July 23rd to August 14th, you could stay for the whole practice. Now you only get to watch 20 or 30 minutes, and frankly, if it's individual drills, you don't get to see really the team activity, so it's kind of hard, you're correct, to watch. But Vick was, in the games, surprisingly good. I mean, his short passes were accurate. He wasn't throwing the ball over receivers or missing receivers. He was making the right reads. He was doing the right thing, when he ran the ball. Nick Foles' performance. I've written this. Nick Foles did not perform poorly, but that interception in the back of the end zone against Carolina was an absolute killer. Vic's interception was an end of half heave.
Hail Mary.
Right. If they intercepted, so what? It's like a punt. I think Vic. I am not generally a Michael Vick fan, and I'll admit that for any number of reasons. But I have been very impressed by the way he's adapted to Kelly's system. And if he stays mentally focused and in the system, the combination of him and Chip Kelly could be a very, very effective score and dangerous scoring combination for NFL defenses to deal with, given the Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy, the tight ends that he has. He used a 4 tight end formation the other night. Yeah. And frankly, the Eagles have 4 tight ends that could play for a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah. Now, is he more comfortable with this offense, or is it a product of the offensive line being more deep than last year, a combination of that? What do you see, Joe?
It's a combination of both, I think. First of all, he's got a whole offensive line in front of him that's supposed to be there, except for Peters, and he'll be with him this week.
Yeah.
But, it's been a pretty solid group. And it would have been that much better had they been together last year, but they never were.
Well, and I think that the depth thing that you pointed out, Chris, is exactly right. Because, and if you look at Andy Reid last year was hiring guys off the street to come in and play, literally to play, to start in the NFL. Jake Scott, I mean, not the Dolphin safety for the 70s, although he might have been better even now. But this year, the Eagles went out and they signed, for example, a guy like Alan Barbray. Now, a journeyman guy. He's been around the NFL. Right. He's been very impressive. Now, I'm not saying he's an all-pro tackle, but you could easily go through a successful season with him if you had to. Whereas last year, the guys they were plugging in, Easton's defensive line would have had a good time against the Eagles' offensive line. I think that really, the line is going to make a big difference, but the depth is going to make a difference as well, because if someone gets hurt, the whole thing doesn't fall apart like it did last year.
And the philosophy.
Yeah.
They run the football. And it's not all pass.
Well, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think people have you were talking about the spread offense before in high school. Yeah. The spread offense, which is not exactly what Kelly runs, although it has similarities to it, neither one of those offenses depend necessarily on passing.
Right.
The first spread offense that was really put into college football was put in by Randy Walker at Northwestern, and he did it to run the ball. To more allow him effectively to run the ball, isolate your athletes on individual guys and let them make plays in space. And that's exactly what Kelly does with his running game. And you've seen it with LaShawn McCoy, with Bryce Brown, with Chris Polk. These guys get one-on-one and they make people miss. All they have to do with McCoy, if one guy misses.
The philosophy is simple. There's 11 guys on defense. Take 4 or 5 of them out of the hash marks. And now you got a different game.
Yeah.
And if you've got any kind of offensive blocking, you run the ball.
Yeah.
But you still have to be able to throw the ball.
Yes.
You can't just run the ball. And it's a balance thing.
Now, can I give the other worrisome thing? The worrisome thing here is Vic's comments today about how he wants to run more, how he wants to be a threat. Yeah. If Vic, you cannot run the way that Michael Vick does for 16 weeks of an NFL season, 18 weeks of an NFL season, and expect to survive the season. No. You can't. At some point, now having Foles there is a nice backup, but what happens then if Foles gets hurt? I mean, Vic needs to really do a better job of controlling his emotions when he's running and saying, well, I could get 2 more yards and take a hit. Yeah. I'm going to run out of bounds.
If he could slide.
Well, he doesn't slide. He
he could slide, his running would not be a problem. But he'll always take guys on when he's running.
He will. And it's the same thing we're talking about with Jimmy Rollins. At this point, Michael Vick is largely what you see. He's not going to change what he does at this point in his career. I don't think too much. He'll change to fit Kelly's system, which he's done. But sliding, I think you're going to see more slides from Jimmy Rollins than you will from than Michael Vick.
All right, real quickly, I want to touch on the defense, too. That obviously was my concern heading into camp.
And it should be, yeah.
The secondary. I was hoping Nate Allen at best would be a backup. It looks like he might be starting. Let's take us from the back forward on defense.
From the back forward, the safeties are Patrick Chung can play. He's going to help. The other guys, Earl Wolf's a nice-looking rookie. He might be able to help. Allen and Coleman are what they are. They don't tackle very well. Their coverage is a little spotty. They're nice guys and everything, but cornerback I think could be a real problem. I haven't seen much from Bradley Fletcher that's impressed me. Kerry Williams talks a lot better game than he covers, especially with his 10-yard cushions. I think they could be in real trouble. Curtis Marsh is overmatched. Another bad Andy Reid draft pick.
Hughes the same way.
It's Hughes the same way. They're going to be in real trouble at cornerback. The linebackers, I think some of them, like Connor Barwin, I think will do very well. He's a high-quality linebacker. Michael Kendricks has had a terrific camp, and I think he's going to do very well. The outside guys, Trent Cole is, he's a defensive end playing linebacker, and he'll probably do about as well as a defensive end playing linebacker can be expected to do. I think on the defensive line, you have some worries. You have guys have not been consistent. I don't think Cedric Thornton is a high-level NFL player. I think Fletcher Cox might be. He's not there yet. Isaac Sopoaga, nice guy, takes up a lot of space. I don't see a lot of movement and action from him. I think that the Eagles will I just think teams that are able to run and pass the ball effectively, that the Eagles have to defend both, they're going to be in. I think the other teams, I think you saw what the Patriots did. I think that's going to be a lot more typical of what good teams do to the Eagles. Now, bad teams like Carolina, the Eagles can stop. And that to me,
they look good against Carolina and pathetic against New England, but that's
right. But Tom Brady, Cam Newton. I mean, it's.
But I don't think Carolina is a bad team. I mean, they might. I think I think before it's. I think you're going to find they're not going to be they're not going to be a bottom 2 or 3
You're full
in the
baloney.
league. I don't think. They're
I'm
that
sorry.
bad.
I respect the fact
I didn't say they were
baloney.
that good, but I think they're a middle of the pack, lower middle of the pack. But
they're better than the team the Eagles are playing this Saturday.
Yes,
I'll say that.
yes.
I mean, that'd be
Jaguars
Jacksonville is terrible.
And there's a few others too.
And real quick, since we're talking defense, linebackers, Andy Reid, didn't seem to put much emphasis on them at all. Does Chip Kelly have any more emphasis on linebackers?
Oh yeah. Well, look at his signature free agent signing with Barwin.
Sure.
I mean, he's easily the best linebacker that I've seen for the Eagles for the last 4 years.
Yeah. And Kendrick's been playing better. He's a guy I think could be really good this year.
Kendrick's somebody finally is starting to teach these guys a little bit about tackling.
Yeah. This might be one of the toughest questions I've ever asked someone on the show.
Okay.
The Phillies say they need to change the dynamic.
Right.
Yet I'm looking at the position players, and you have at least 7 players coming back, maybe Carlos Ruiz coming back, because he's probably going to be cheap. How can you change the entire dynamic with the entire starting infield and outfield coming back? Probably most of your pitching staff, or at least the starters, are coming back. Doc Holliday could be coming back. How do you change the dynamic with keeping all the same players?
That's a very interesting question.
And improve, by the way.
I have thought, I think it's a mistake. I think they should have, I think the core has run out of chances, and I think the core should be thanked for their service. And, I mean, you're correct, you can't get rid of Howard, but you didn't have to extend Utley. Rollins you probably could get rid of. You probably could trade Rollins. But they've decided not to do that. They're going with this group again. So I think the answer is the talk of changing things, changing the dynamic, is nonsense. I don't think it's going to happen. And the clubhouse is that clubhouse is dictated by those guys, and as long as they are there, it will stay that way.
Mm-hmm. Mike and Joe, any ideas on how they improve and stay the same, basically?
Yeah, obviously, if the faces are still the same, but dynamic-wise, they can, dynamically or whatever, they can change just with the work ethic. That if Ryan Sandberg says, we're taking extra BP, or we're going out and we're doing extra infield, even if Howard doesn't want to do it and he goes out there and he still gets a couple more ground balls or Utley or whatever like that, I think that work ethic that Ryan Sandberg has will, go onto the players as well. And I think that's how they can change, as opposed to, all right, you're gone, you're still here, you're gone, like that.
But I think there has to be a price for it. If somebody does something you don't like, if Howard does something you don't like, then Darren Roof starts that night, and Howard's on the bench, and he finds out that, if something with Rollins guys like that, with too much under Charlie, the one thing there was not that accountability. I would agree with that.
I saw that as an Iron Pigs manager with the Sandberg. You saw that, you covered them. I mean, he didn't take any scuff. If things weren't, there was changes the next night. He did that. That's what he does.
All right, it's one other question, too. Joe, are you buying your World Series tickets then for next year?
For
the Phillies?
Phillies? No, they're a couple years away. But they're not as bad as people think. They're really not that far. Two players on the field. Two on the field players they need. We're going to talk about that later. The bullpen's where they got to do some work.
That was my question to these guys. Where do they go in the bullpen? Which of these young players do you keep? How you know, you factor in raises too. They can't go just hog wild, pardon the pun, and bring in 4 different, established relievers. So some guys got to stay. You know, where do they go from here? Mike, we'll start with you.
It's tough because, I've covered these guys on the Iron Pigs, and you see a Diekman and DeFreitas and Almont and Joe Savory and all these guys. They can look so good on Thursday night and so bad on Friday night. And I don't know what it is going to take to get these guys consistent.